484,000 people are playing this game. 484,000 players, like right now, are playing this game. And what this game, you may ask? Well, it's me, a former Fish player, talking about my experiences with this game after I finally decided to quit after knowing that it's just not worth going through it anymore. Like right now, like today as of this video at least, there was the new Atlantis update. And let's just say it was overhyped, and when it was released, um, this came out anticlimactic. So I'm just gonna be here, straightforward, and I'm going to explain what do I really think about Fish in the end. So, for starters, Fish is self-explanatory. It's a game where you basically fish up some fish, sell them for money, explore some new islands, and get some rods as well, and much, much more. And usually fishing is a side aspect for most games. Like, you've seen that Terraria has it, but it's mainly if you want to get some stuff. But more importantly, Stardew Valley has it as well, which is basically the game that Fish inspired because of its mechanics. That is, if you have compared the gameplay of Stardew Valley and Fish. When it was released, it was actually pretty fun. Like, I'm gonna be really honest here, especially with the Halloween update. Like, sure, it's not very big, but it still gives this spirit of nostalgia. Oh my, the times where Flying Dutchman gets absolutely haywire if you're not piloting it, and when you try to get Nessie, but
No,
at
no,
some point you can't because of the
no,
progress speed
no,
being
no,
very absurd that you need
no!
like a steady rod or something that has a high resilience for it. We know that updates appear weekly, and some of them which appear to be uh, like Ancient Isles and Depths of Vertigo, which is basically Vertigo expansion, and not Winter's Edge, and Fishmas in some cases, or should I say Christmas event, and the new update, which is the Atlantis. Can't also forget the Northern Expedition, that one is also major. Speaking of major updates, that's where the problem lies in when it comes to updates. So let's just talk about Ancient Isles, for example. Crafting was implemented here, where you can craft rods, and that you have to find materials for it. But that didn't really meet everyone's expectations, and we might know about it later when we get to the rod section. The thing is, major updates not only get overhyped, but it takes like a few weeks for them to be released, and when they get released eventually, you either complete them like really fast and you only end up having trash rods that no other people could use. Even if it's just one, that just means other rods are being neglected. And that is not the first time. Keep that in mind. Because the Northern Expedition has some rods, but I would say that the Arctic rod is still usable, but only for early games, and and the other, being the Heavens rod, is still used and is probably somewhere in like late game and end game. I'm not sure if it's end game, but it can't be end game. I would just say it's late game. What I'm trying to interpret about major updates is that they get so overhyped and meet everyone's expectations that when it gets released, they just meet up with straight disappointment and not see what really have they wanted for the update to be. And this is a really big issue because some major updates take a few weeks for them to be released. So for them to meet up with disappointment after waiting countless days for them to be released just so they can see like the content in the major update is just really diabolical. And when major updates get released, 80% of the rods or 90% of the rods end up to be trash and barely even usable because some rods surpass them by 1,000 times. Even the archaeological hunt update was straight ass to say the least, because all you have to do is find 10 different fossils and you do it by fishing them. And when you return them, you go to a certain island where it appears to be like an ancient isle but under construction, and that you find some kind of a puzzle that doesn't take long to complete, assuming that you have the map or some kind of a code decipheration paper after you give 10 of the fossils back to the NPC. And when you decipher the code and eventually enter inside, all you get is one thing, the relic rod. And that's the most disappointing part about the event, because if you follow the wiki page, you can see that this stage is from stage 2, and that's the category for rods that's only for between early game and mid game. For example, magnet rods, nocturnal rods, rapid rods, and the fortune rod. And you have to spend your precious time just to fish up 10 different fossils only to have this rod that won't be even usable at any time soon. But since at that time the Ancient Isles update was being prepared, I just gave myself some hope and assumed that maybe the relic rod might be craftable, or there might be something to unlock its full potential, that it might be even more broken than the Rod of the Depths, except no. After the Ancient Isles update was released, there was barely anything to the Relic Rod, so it just ends up being forgotten. And that's as of now, like, no one is talking about it as of now. And some people talk about it because they wish that it'd be like an upgradable rod, but no, they just forgot. No, they didn't even forget about it, obviously, but who knows? They just neglect it as it is. They just make it an abandoned rod that no one is going to use. Now, speaking of the rods, there is also a major issue about the rods, and I mean by balancing them. Except they're not even balanced, and the unholy trinity, which includes the rods being used the most, is none other than the Rod of the Depths, the No Life Rod, and the Heaven's Rod. And it's really imbalanced because they're not even past stage 8, which consists of 3 craftable rods that needs to be unlocked by leveling up, such as the Celestial Rod being level 500, Eternal King level 650, and the Forgotten Fang, which is 750. And yet, despite all that, well, it did get some buffs before, but it didn't make up for the hard work that people have exerted just getting into level 750 and still sticking to one of the 3 rods. And the ability for Celestial Rod is not as impressive as it seems, as it only says after catching 85 fish, you get a 5-minute boost of 55% luck, 30% lure, and 30% XP, and every fish that you caught will have Celestial Mutation, which has 2 times value. But that is not worth the hard work people have exerted, especially when it comes to crafting, because it's basically just taking a while to get into that kind of boost, and they have to catch about 85 fishes just to reach it, and it lasts for like 5 minutes. Like, that's not really worth it. The Eternal King is not bad, especially with the ability. It is decent, but it's often being power creeped because of the new rods, so it just ends up being forgotten. Forgotten Fang, on the other hand, which by the way, it was released as being ass because of the underwhelming stats before they eventually buffed it, is not shining enough and is not being on par with the other rods that people still use these days who are in endgame progression. And even most event rods won't be really getting a use anytime soon once they reach past mid game progression, but it makes sense. It will be pretty broken actually if they intend to come up with an event that awards a broken rod. So it's a good thinking. And yes, you read that correct. Those 3 rods, which is the Frost Warden, Fishmas, and Frostfire, are paid rods. Okay, let's ignore the fact that they come in packs. that are usually paid with Robux, why are they really bad and not even having a single ability? Like, will anyone really use it? It's doesn't make any sense. If you were to do a comparison between those three paid rods and an Arctic rod, you would definitely switch to the Arctic rod because it's 100 times better than three of them. And especially since three of them don't even have their own signature ability. That also includes the Arctic rod, by the way. The other craftable rods also don't shine a lot as well because of how often they get power crept. Like the precision rod, which is basically the better version of rapid rod, um, having about these stats, and it doesn't even have any stat ability, obviously, because it's supposed to be designed for early to mid game players. And the ingredients there are not worth for the crafting, and it just ends up being forgotten afterward. And then you got the Wisdom Rod, which is supposed to be for boosting XP whenever you fish, as shown in this ability description. But the stats are bad for it being uh, only for boosting XP, that is, if you use it. And it also requires the mythical driftwood, and therefore it doesn't make up for the hard work. Especially with those stats being bad, yeah, it's not worth it. They have buffed it as well, but it's still relatively bad and it really doesn't shine. So maybe if they give a big buff, people who are trying to level up really bad will will have the purpose to use this wisdom rod, but will it ever happen? That's up for fate to decide. And we know the other craftable rods are just as bad as we guess, and oftentimes get power crept as well. The scurvy rod shouldn't be even here because it's being neglected a lot and it doesn't even have its own signature ability, so why even adding it? Need I mention that most rods in the Northern Expedition, except for the crystallized and heaven rods because they have their own purpose, are power crept really easily by just one rod, and that is the Arctic rod. And because of how cheap it is and how good the stats are for an early to mid game rod, even if it doesn't have any ability, that power creeps the other rods in the Northern Expedition very easily, especially since they don't also have their signature ability as well. As for the new rods in the Atlantis update, unfortunately most rods are still also very power crept because of how stupidly expensive they are, and even with the stats, it really doesn't compete with the Unholy Trinity. Not to mention they don't even have their own signature ability, which is really heretic to say the absolute least. Except for the Kraken Rod, which supposedly it's the best rod the out of the rods added in the Atlantis update. Not obviously out of every rods. And it has two passives. Every 50 catches, the player catches one of the high tier fish from the bestiary that the player has already unlocked, and has 10% chance that the rod will give you 10 times of the caught fish. So we have the third rod that has the duplicate ability, which is it's just not no, it's not what I want it to be. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like the fourth rod that has the ability to duplicate. Like it's why even bother? Like and why would you even do it? Even the passive, which is guaranteeing high rarity fish after 50 catches, is not really impressive. Maybe buff it into like 10, 20 catches. I don't know how will they make it perfectly balanced, but it's not really making it up as well. The stats are better than Heaven's Rod though, I'll give them that, but it's not impressive and not enough to compete with the Unholy Trinity. So yeah, balancing the rods is basically like non-existent at this point. At least some rods actually have their own purpose, like the reinforced rod because it allows you to fish in the volcano and brine pool if you want to complete the best trade, or if you want the spectral serpent, and as well as the crystallized rod if you want to catch the crystallized relic just so you can get the exalted one, which is also which also has its own purpose of catching exalted relic much faster. I'll bet still taking a while, but if you have the patience, then yeah, you could probably get a few exalted relics. Another reason why I think Fish is not getting potential that it needs is also because of the shop, which some of them are only cosmetic oriented, such as the supporter game pass. But if you want it for the Halo or the Bobber or whatever, then go ahead, I guess. The Appraiser's Luck is nice, the Double XP is nice, the Emote Pack is also nice if you really like emotes, but Sell Anywhere and Appraise Anywhere are pretty redundant if I want to describe it. First of all, the Sell Anywhere Game Pass is redundant because merchants are here like they're like in almost every places and almost every island, so getting this Game Pass is pretty redundant and is typically for those who are lazy to get into the merchants if they want to sell their fish. And it's for like 400 Robux, so it's definitely not worth it. Secondly, the appraise anywhere is also stupid, especially for its price, like 500 Robux. Like, if you want to appraise, just go to the Moosewood. It's not hard. Oh yeah, let's not forget the spawn boat anywhere. I don't know if it actually serves a purpose, but usually I have no problem just spawning a boat from a ship rate. And of course you got the bobber bag if you really like bobbers, and the radio, but I'm not sure if anyone even buys the radio game pass when they can just go to YouTube or anything. Maybe I just have a different opinion, so yeah. I have mixed opinion about the server luck because while it does give a lot of luck, there also seem to cost a certain amount of Robux just so you can stack or increase the duration. So I don't know about it, but hey, it exists. Now let's talk about the limited bobbers. It used to be actually paid with credits as well. I don't know if anyone managed to get it, but let's say that it was there, but it just got removed because of the bug and is planning to be re-added later, which, spoiler alert, no they did not. And I don't know if they will in the future, but I highly doubt they will. You also got the limited skins, which we're going to talk about like the regular skins later. They do have the skins which ranges from 300 to 1,500 just for a skin. Like, I don't know. Like, they look pretty cool, but why do they have to be pay to win featured? Like, why do they have to be locked behind the shop that costs Robux? Like, why? Like, if bobbers can be paid with credits, which I don't know if they ever will, why not have the same to the skins for the crates or credits? Or any free to play way to actually get them. Like, why making it pay to win? And the issue is that the developers are claiming that they're not trying to make it pay to win based, but when you open the shop, you find a lot of stuff. So clearly, this may or may not be a pay to win game, and we have been bamboozled really hard by their claim that says, I can assure you we are not trying to make it pay to win, and with those credits shop, we're just planning to like reduce them and try to make it more free to play friendly, which no, they did not. They're not even letting it be. Speaking of the credits, um, you can actually see that they're stupidly expensive. With the highest one providing about 25,000 credits for 900 Robux, when you can actually get that amount in no time. It's really fucking stupid. Even the starter pack, which even though it's only shown to new players when they first join, Okay, they have the fish's rod, they also have the coral boat, but why is there a fish radar here when you can purchase it? Shouldn't they just replace it with anything like pay to win related? Yeah, I don't know why they just add the fish radar when you can just add it for a cheaper price of credits, assuming that assuming that you can find it laying on the chair. I think that's the proper location for the fish radar to buy, right? But anyways, yeah, fish radar and a starter pack is stupid when we already know that the fish radar is can be bought with credits and is relatively cheaper as well, especially for those who have joined the game. Now the skins or like the skin crates, I really have no opinion, but they do contain skins that look pretty cool, so hey, I'm in. So in conclusion, Fish is a great game when it comes to the concept, especially if it's inspired by Stardew Valley's Fish minigame kind of kind of thing. And they did execute it well, but unfortunately, it's starting to be sloppy as hell, like those other games, with the issues like whether it be the rot power creep or the updates duration, like the fact that they're being overhyped and ending up meeting up with disappointment, being it slowly paid to win, like it's becoming problematic. It's starting to become pretty sloppy. It's like a generic sloppy game at this point. And it's unfortunate because I see it as a unique game that has a lot of potential that maybe there could probably be craft debates uh, into that are pretty good or anything like that, or like any good concept. But as it turns out, this game was sold by Dubik Studios, the very same uh, kind of game developer team that made Blade Ball, and it's not a good sign. Keep in mind that I'm not saying Fish is bad. I mean, to be fair, I I had a lot of fun especially when I first joined the game, especially with the Vertigo expansion, and I truly believed that this game would have a lot of potential, but I just lost faith to it the moment they released the Atlantis update, and that's what encouraged me to stop XP farming constantly in the Atlantean storm and and actually vowing to myself that I will quit this game until maybe if they if they just fix what's really wrong with the game, maybe I will consider coming back. But no, at this point, I just lost all my faith and I'm done playing this game. Re I really hate a game that has really good potential, but it just goes down the waste and turns out being a slop. Well, time to switch to Bee Swarm.